Okay, setting up your meeting for Facebook Live, and let's see. Uh, okay, and it is live. It is live now. So if we wanna share it, we can share it. Hello, and we're ready to go live in 2 minutes. But you can see us live, people. So hello, we are behind the scenes right now in the green room. We haven't started, but. If you want to join us live, have any questions for us, we'll do that. Let's see. Here we go. Pages and Comedian Nazareth. And here we go. And we are live and we're gonna share this. Okay, and we can share this live. How can we share this? We're learning how to share this. Okay. It, it doesn't. Okay, here we go. Come on. Okay, share, share, share. Here we go. Yes, I'm gonna share it to more options. Okay, let's share it to. Okay, share and share now. Here we go. All right. Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. I am comedian Nazareth, and this is the Laughter for All podcast, where our goal is to make you laugh, but also we want to entertain you, we want to encourage you, we want to lift you up, we want to make you forget about this whole pandemic if we can. So, who better to bring as a guest other than my good friend Anita Renfro? Anita, are you with us here? Yes, here you are.
I'm here,
Okay.
man. I'm here.
Oh, okay, let me introduce my friend Anita. Anita is a very, very funny comedian. I've known her for many years. When we started the Christian Comedy Association, she was a part of it, and then she did great comedy. And what attracted me to her comedy is her honesty. She said things like, you go, okay, and you see the audience laughing, and then you go, I
Is
guess it's
that
okay.
honesty or is that no filter? I don't know which one it is.
Well, I will ask you. That's a good question. Let me introduce her professionally for those who might not know who she is. Anita has been featured as a comedy correspondent for Good Morning America. I think it was for a year or over a year. Performed at the Grand Ole Opry, has appeared on Dr. Phil, Sirius XM, Oprah and Friends, CBS, The Early Show, Fox News channels, Fox and Friends, Inside Edition, Nickelodeon's Mom's Night Out, Huckabee, and many more. Anita tours with her own Concert and Inspirations Women's Conference, where she routinely packs out venues across the United States. If you
Well,
know,
that was when we had venues across the United States.
that's BC. Everything we offer is before coronavirus. BC, before
Correct.
Christ.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
and
That's
and
exactly right.
you know what? One of the biggest Christian events around the country are the Women's of Faith, and she was a regular performer. And if they ever bring him back after the when we can still gather again, she'll be on a
Oh
grim front.
man, isn't that just the question mark that hangs over everything? Is when can we gather? I know, a lot of churches are just for Sunday services now. Probably not where you are. Naz, are they still regulating that in California?
Oh, we're closed. Everything's closed.
Wow. Yeah.
Every
Well, uh where I am, I live in Texas now, and there's not a lot closed. There's limits on some, how many people you can have in a certain area, but a lot of things are reopened down here. But still, people don't feel comfortable gathering in large groups. So um I don't know. I feel a little bit comedy constipated, like I just have things I need to get out and I can't. But man, the amount of material that I'm amassing about quarantine, which there's nothing funny about COVID, but there's a lot of things funny about quarantine. We're all fluffier than we used to be, and we're just, people that are extroverts like me that just love hugging and being with people. We're just so depressed right now because we
Y-
can't have our normal interactions with, I don't know a lot of strangers because the minute you meet and you share one piece of personal information, like your name, I feel like you're already friends. Strangers are just friends you haven't figured out how to connect with yet. But I am so done with waiting to be back on stage. I mean, I keep asking the Lord, what is the lesson here? Can we just check that off and move on? But I know that we're all having the same collective experience, and I pray that when we get to the other side of it, that we're better than when we started. But it just seems like we're just getting angrier and more upset while we have to sit home and eat carbs. I don't know.
Yes. You know what? You're right. I mean, speaking of comedy fun, constipation, I listened to your song about fiber, and that kind of takes care of that. But and
I need
everybody
some
have to go
comedy
listen to
fiber
that.
right now. I need
Yeah.
comedy fiber.
You know,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
I'm like you. I felt, I mean, for a long, I felt like, okay, what's going on and what's gonna happen? And number one, it made me appreciate like people's noses. I've never appreciated people's noses and mouths. I've always looked in their eyes, and now like, show me your nose. Just show me your nose. I can see. We started to appreciate being. I think, and this is my feeling, and it's I'm not. I'm hosting this show, but you know what, Anita? I used to complain about being on a plane, having so many, dates in a row.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
I I am so blessed. I'm sitting on the plane in an American Airlines with promised 6 feet, distancing. Every seat is taken. You're like less than a foot away. I'm going. I'm so thankful, Lord, and I get to
Yeah,
go
I
and
know. Oh man, does it not change your perspective? I was talking to somebody about this a couple of weeks ago, but you know, a lot there's a lot of humbling, in the experience where the things that you felt entitled to and oh this and that and whatever. And now you just be so excited to experience the inconvenience of it all in order to do the thing that you love to do. And entertainment and mass gatherings and hospitality like hotels and venues were amongst the first to literally go to from 100 to 0 in
hmm
one day. And according to my friends in Nashville that are in live events, and that's not just the performers, but also people that are the roadies, the people that run the venues, that do sound and lights and things like that, that have also went to 0 because live performance stopped. According to them, it'll be one of the last things to come back because it requires groups.
yes.
A lot of other things, you can limit the number of people in a store or in a restaurant, and you can continue to have some sort of business, but live events seems to be one of the last things that's going to come back online, I believe. So we still have a bit of a wait. I'm sorry to say.
No, I know. I did a show this last weekend. I was in Northern California, and I did something called Laugh Outdoors Loud, and we did an event outdoors in a smaller town because the further you go from the cities, the less people are
Less
concerned of
restrictions. Yeah,
less
yeah.
restriction. And but we had the fire, so it was hard for people to be outside because of the smoke a little bit. But you know what, Anita? I noticed like. And this is, I think, God is allowing this to a part of what the lessons we learn as entertainers. Like, you know how sometimes you do shows every night and you go into automatic pilot where you know what you're
Sure.
gonna. I said, no, I'm not. I'm gonna enjoy every moment. I'm gonna listen to every laugh because I haven't. I don't know when's the next one I'm gonna hear those, an
Yes.
audience laughing live.
It makes you more present for sure. And also, not only are you more present, but the last 2 weekends have been the first 2 weekends that I've worked in 7 months. And at both the first one, I felt incredibly rusty. Like I've never been off 7 months since I started 20 years ago. I've been off 7 weeks maybe for summertime, but
Yeah.
never 7 months. So I had a lot of, I would call it monkey chatter in my head, like,
Yes.
wait a minute, what if I don't remember how to do this? Oh, what comes next? I could feel the gears grinding a little bit, but I was so thankful that it didn't even bother me. But then this last weekend was my second event, and I feel like all the rust got shaken off on that first one. And I just was exactly like you said, so present in the moment, because you have to appreciate it, because you never know if something's going to shut down completely again and we're off the road, off the stage altogether. And I have to say, this wasn't always my job. Like, I didn't even start comedy until I was 38. I was almost 40 when I
Hmm.
started. So I was a pastor's wife and a mom, stay-at-home mom, a lot. I mean, I would say a lot longer than I've been a comedian. That's true. But like I've had a portion of my life where the stage wasn't my thing,
Right.
So I'm content. Um, this doesn't feel foreign to me. It just
Mm.
isn't familiar recently to me. So I don't know that I miss it in the way that some people that's all they've done their adult life do.
Mhm.
But I miss it because I love sharing joy. And I think laughter is just, up until 7 months ago, I thought it was real essential. That's people kept saying that. Oh, we really need it. Laughter's so good, and I'm like, oh, great, it's really essential. And then one day in March, it wasn't. It wasn't
Yes,
essential
we're
anymore
not.
at all.
Now, what funny things have you noticed personally that you came up
Oh,
with about
oh my
the
goodness.
pandemic?
Well, uh, I have a song called "Those Ain't Pants" that I did a few years back about the difference between actual pants and leggings, because it seemed like our country had forgotten that there was a difference. So during COVID, it became apparent because of Zoom and Facebook Live that nobody had to wear pants at all, much less real pants.
Uh,
So I rewrote "Those Ain't Pants" about, you know, being only able to be seen from the waist up for months at a time. So um, that's funny to me that I thought there was no way for our inability to differentiate between pants and leggings could get any worse, but I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about how lazy America could be as a country. You know, we were pretty lazy before. I mean, any country that has to schedule exercise, I feel like maybe we've kind of lost touch with activity in general. But then they're like, no, you got to stay home. And we thought it was going to be 6 weeks. Do you remember when it started off and we're like, oh,
yeah, 6 weeks.
six
Yeah, I
weeks?
can I can
I
survive
can
six
do
weeks.
I can do anything for 6 weeks, right? I've had 3 children and it seemed like 6 weeks every labor and delivery. But so I thought America was as lazy as we could be, but then they say no, stay home, and you're like, oh wait, there's a whole nother gear we didn't know about. So no pants, lazy. Everybody gained weight because it is within the survival of the
Yeah,
species to eat.
hibernating.
Hibernation, eating for comfort. I mean, we comforted ourselves right out of jeans completely. Like, jeans were not even an option. But there's a couple of good things about it. Number one, you don't have to Botox now. You've just fluffed it all out with fat. So, no need for injections. The other thing is, once you've got that COVID 15 or 20 on, you're practically unabductable. So, go out with a mask and don't be afraid. Nobody's going to take you. Not that they wanted you, but if they did, there's no place to grab a hold. It's all blubber. So
Yeah,
there's,
you're right. I think Lululemon knew that this is coming, and that's why they
oh,
started pushing the
anything with
yoga pants.
spandex. Yeah. So the spandex pants, the leggings, whatever, um, they helped us to survive COVID, right? Because they just kept expanding with us. That's the idea. But uh, when we get ready to go out into the real world in 3D again, and not just 2D from the waist up, it's a tragedy. What's going on? We got ratchet hair because we can't get to our hairdresser. So
Yeah.
mine's growing like I'm a Pentecostal of some sort. But I don't know. It's been interesting, to try to I not occupy yourself. I've been moving into a new construction house, so I had zero time to think about almost anything other than how much the contractors just lie. They just lie, lie, lie,
Oh
lie.
yeah, they don't
Oh,
show
and
up.
now everything. Oh, and so before COVID, everything was just delayed because people were inept. But man, when COVID came along, it gave everybody an excuse, right?
Oh yes, yes,
The
yes.
only reason for anything being subpar is COVID now. And so I thought America could get lazier. I thought customer service couldn't get any worse. I was so wrong.
It's the
We're all
next
the
gear,
whole
the next level.
we're next level now, America. And I always said before COVID, if somebody wanted to make America great again, fix customer service, because I feel like once we lost that, we lost a lot. Like that was the little the slippery slope that everything went down on. But man, I had no idea that COVID could arm us so strongly against any positive customer service experience
I know.
anymore.
You know what? People, I call the companies now. They go because of COVID. I'm like, shut up. You were lousy
No,
before.
you were
You were
lame
horrible
before.
before.
You were lame before. And now they make it all about, we're compassionate. We're letting our employees stay home. I'm like, there's millions of people out of work who could do this job from their home. So don't give me that, if
Yeah,
and some places have completely shut down their customer service lines. Like they don't even
yeah.
have them anymore. And I'm like, wow, I don't even know, I don't even recognize where I live anymore. It's
Y-
crazy.
Yesterday my son, he had someone borrow his car, his friend, and she got stuck at 3 in the morning on traffic. So I'm calling for AAA, but actually through the Geico company. And they're like, well, we don't have any employees because of the COVID. So go online and download the app. And it's like, it's 3 in the morning, and but it's okay. You
Right.
know what? I wanna ask you this. You said you didn't start till like 38 with comedy and all that. No, you were
Mhm.
a pastor's wife. Now, I know for sure you were born funny. God gave you that gene in the beginning. How did you handle that as a pastor's wife who everybody is probably you were in Atlanta or in what state were
Yeah,
you in?
some in Virginia, and some in Atlanta, in a few years in Mississippi. But the same thing that God, he did. I feel like he hardwired me funny. And
Yeah.
so I always had the party in my head. I grew up in a faith culture that didn't really celebrate comedy. We were more about rules and regulations. So uh, I didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to let it out as a child. But I always loved music. And so music was, creative expression for me. When I got married and my husband was pastor, he still is, by the way.
Yeah, I
Um,
love this man. I love
what
this
but he was
man.
on the road with me for 17 years because I require a lot of adult supervision. So um anyway, so the same thing that made the party funny in my head was maybe like a career liability for him if I let it out.
Mm.
So I didn't think it was appropriate to let it out much because people didn't get it, right? Because they're not
Were they
expecting him.
complaining? Were they coming to him saying, Anita said something that was inappropriate or
Well,
doesn't?
they would have, except I was a really good piano player, and churches always need a really good piano player. So I think they kind of
Yeah.
went,
Like,
she's
yeah.
weird, but she plays the piano. We can't afford to go find another one. So that was my defense, was that I was really good at the piano. So yeah, poor John. So what's funny is that the things that he used to get fired for, I now get paid for. So, God can turn stuff around. That's all I'm saying. So I would do women's events, like just in the church and churches in the area. And I'd go lead worship because I was a cheap date because I could sing and play. So they only had to
Yeah.
hire one person instead of two. And invariably something would pop up that I thought was hilarious. And so when it was my turn to do something, I would just have to comment on it. And if you don't know, like some of these country churches are on septic, so like the lady that was in charge of the conference would have to come up and say something like, don't all flush at the same time. And I thought it was hilarious. And so I would make up a little song about synchronized flushing, like don't only stalls 2 and 4 can go at the same time, and 3 and 5 have to go separately. Anyway, so I would just do stuff in the moment, and I didn't understand that that literally almost no one thought in these weird ways. I thought everybody thought it, just nobody had the guts or the lack of inhibitions or lack of edit, whatever it is you want to call it, to say it. I thought, well, this is, and you know what? The freer I got, I think this is why God was really, it was so encouraging to start late. Is I didn't care as much what people thought about me because I was almost 40. And when you get close to 40, you really stop caring. You just
Right.
really get comfortable in your own skin. And you're like, wow, all this time I thought people were thinking things about me, and they weren't thinking about me at all. They were thinking about their own lives, So that was so great. And I also got to raise my kids, without traveling a lot. I
Right.
think my daughter might have been middle school, and my two boys were in high school before I ever started traveling at all. So I got to be a mom, and I got to do the sequential thing where you get to, you know, love on your kids and, then do something crazy and wild. So um, I was literally one of the last people to know that I was funny in a way that mattered to anybody else, because I just thought it was for my own amusement and enjoyment. And people kept saying, "You're really funny. Can you come back next year and do more of the funny stuff?" And I was like, I don't think so. I think I was just talking. They're like, no, it was hilarious. And so it's crazy to me that I didn't get it um,
Uh,
early on. I just thought everybody's mind worked like this. So it was quite the revelation to me that it was funny to anybody else besides
but you
me.
know what? But you started it, and you became, because you were a great singer and a great comedian. So when you put these songs together, and really, I
Oh,
know the mom song. I mean, that's
yes.
your
It was
signature
the
song.
one that it was the one that got me into, I would call it like regular culture, because like before that I was already touring with women of faith. So in the
Which is
Christian,
big.
yeah, in the Christian, I would call it subculture. Um I already was, I would say somewhat recognizable. I don't know what the
No,
level
you were,
is.
you do
So,
women's face. You're recognizable in the
but
Christian movement.
then when the mom song went viral, and I got on Good Morning America, I feel like that was the point. That was like a tipping point into general culture. And I think every comedian, and you can correct me if I'm right, but I think every comedian wants that bit that people recognize, even if they don't know your name. And
Right.
I remember for Jim Gaffigan, I'd say 6, 8 years ago, even if you didn't know who he was, you knew about Hot Pockets, right?
Hot
He's the guy
pockets,
that
yeah.
does the Hot Pockets thing, right? So to me, to have a piece that people may not know your name, but they know the piece, the comedy piece, is a great honor as a comedian. I consider it that way, because people, even to this day, well, up until 7 months ago,
Yeah.
would say, "I'm going to go see Anita Renfro," and somebody be like, "Oh, who's that?" "She's a comedian." "Yeah, but how would I know her?" Right? They're looking for more information, and they will say, "Oh, the mom song," and they go, "Oh, her," right? So
Yeah.
the "oh, her" is the part that is, I think, is a real honor to any comedian, is that people recognize the thing, even if they don't recognize you. So the mom song was that for me, that got me. I wouldn't say busted out of the Christian subculture, because I still live there. That's who I will forever be, because that's
Right.
my identity, not just my job. But got a lot of great opportunities to make a sitcom pilot, and New York Times did an article on me. I didn't know that that was dangerous.
Why?
um, at, at the time they did it, um, I was like, "Oh, yay!" New York Times, and a crew from Good Morning America was in Georgia doing a shoot, and one of the lady that was writing the article came to observe, and it wigged them out because they all lived in New York, right? That was their home base. And they
Mm.
said, "Why is the New York Times doing a piece on you?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was so naive, so dumb. They're like, "If they're doing a piece on you, it's not normally a good thing. They're looking for something bad
Oh,
to talk about." And I was I you know I, of course, now when I read pieces in the New York Times, I'm like, "Oh, that's right. They're always looking." But God was really merciful to me. The guy that was from New York, that was the head of the crew, said to me, and this is a great piece of advice for anybody.
Right.
He said, you need to make peace with the 3 worst things they can say about you. And I was like, oh, what would that be? And I thought about it. And the first thing that I immediately thought of is that they'd say, I'm not really a Christian, like,
Mm.
but the way he said, you make peace with, if they say that, can you lay your head on the pillow at night and know if it's true or not? And I was like, well, they don't know my spiritual condition. So that's
That's
number
fine.
1. The second thing they could say is, I don't love my family. That was number 2, that I somehow abandoned them or didn't care for them. And I knew that wasn't true. And the third thing they could say was that I wasn't funny. I'm like, that's the 3 worst. I don't love God. I don't take care of my family. And I'm not funny. And I was like, well, that's kind of subjective anyway. I'm sure not everybody finds me funny. That's why there's a lot of comedians. We all have different places and different
Right.
lanes that we run in, right? So I made peace with those 3 things. And you know what? They didn't say any of those things in that article. And it was very even-handed. There was only 1 or 2 mistakes. It was like a billion words. Like, it was, I'm not kidding, 50,000 words. And I've written entire books that weren't a whole lot longer than that. So,
They were kind to me. In New York Times, they didn't say anything bad about me. But then when I started taking what they said, oh, he had the audience convulsing. I started putting it in my website, and the Christians going, why do you have the New York Times saying something good about you? That must be so.
oh, well, you should, because it's so rare that they say anything good. They did print one thing. They tried to guess my income, and they guessed what they guessed, and they said this is unverified even when they printed it. They guessed higher than the Christian market would pay, and they guessed lower than general market would pay. And I was like, well, it's a pretty good guess. It wasn't close, but I was like, all right,
Okay.
that's a
Okay.
good
I'll take
guess,
that.
But other than that, there were no inaccuracies, and I felt incredibly blessed that it wasn't a hit piece of any kind, you know.
Let me ask you this: you started as serving with your husband, who's an amazing man. I love John, and
Everybody loves them.
you were helping him as as his wife and pastor's wife, and then your career starts taking off, and you hit big, and then I see John leaving the pastoral for a while and being your road manager or your assistant or coming on the road
Right,
with you.
right.
And how how did that? What kind of fights did you guys have when in that
That's a
adjustment?
great question. What kind of fights did you have? I was going to start with what a servant my husband is, but you're going to start with the fights. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
what fights?
well, I'll tell you one of the hardest parts about that transition. Well, first of all, God spoke to both of us separately about it. Um,
Mm,
I I hated trying to figure out how to be on the road. And all the people that I took out with me before he came out on the road with me, I always felt like I needed to take care of them. Like,
mm.
oh, these
You're
people
a
came
mom.
out,
You're a mom.
and I need to make sure they're fed, and I need to make sure they get where, and they know what they're, so it was always me trying to make sure they were okay. And then when John came out with me, because he's my husband, it was his job to make sure I was okay. So
Yeah.
that was a huge shift. And if the Lord had not spoken to us separately about it, because neither of us admitted it to the other one for 2 weeks. And it was so funny because the Lord told us both at the same time, and both of us were afraid to talk about it because I didn't want to ask him to come out on the road with me and stop what he was doing. And
Mm.
he didn't want to say, I feel like the Lord is saying I need to come out with you, because he didn't know if I wanted him to, you know. And I did more than I wanted my next breath, but I didn't want to ask him to suspend his pastoral duties and just be my personal pastor for 17 years. But that's
That's what
what
happens.
happens. Except I sleep with my pastor. Most people don't do that.
You sleep
Um,
with your manager,
and my
road
road
manager.
manager, and it's all the same guy. So if that in to answer your question forthrightly about arguments, in the beginning, we many of them were about travel style, because I'd already been out on the road for 4 years when he came out with me. Like, I like to get to the gate right when they're saying, and now we're boarding, rows 24 through
Ooh,
17. Like,
ooh,
I
ooh.
don't want to be at the gate an hour before. That's just
I'm
the
like
most
John.
boring
I'm
to
like
me.
John,
Okay,
man.
he's having a heart attack, right? He likes lots of time. He likes to go get a cup of coffee and wander around, and all of that is just death to me. I think if you're a comedian, you got to have a little bit of adrenaline addiction, because otherwise it doesn't work on the stage. So my adrenaline addiction, it went on to include travel life, and he
Mm,
did not like that at all. So I finally acquiesced to his schedule, and I learned how to amuse myself while waiting and waiting and waiting. But we also early on decided that, this is a good decision, and this might be good for anybody that's in business with their husband or their
right.
spouse or
Yes,
significant
please.
other. We decided to exclude from our marriage satisfaction assessment anything that occurred on the way out of the door trying to get to the airport, or anything that occurred 1 hour before the show, because we determined that those two times were so stressful that we were both saying a lot of things we didn't mean, and we probably
Mm.
couldn't stop saying those things because we were so stressed out. So we just both decided, like, if we ever get in marriage counseling, you can't talk about anything that was said on the way to the airport or right before a show starts, right? Those are two really high pressure
That's a
moments.
great advice. That's a great advice for married people. You're right.
Yeah, you should
Wow.
find stress situations where you can just believe the other person has your back and they're doing the best they can, except the stress of the moment doesn't reflect that. And I think everybody has that. And the problem is they adjudicate the success of their marriage by what happens in those very stressful times. So
Mm.
we just partitioned business out of the equation. And also, we spoke business shorthand during the day from 10 in the morning till whatever time at night when we were at home, trying to build the business and keep the business going. But then after 5 o'clock, we pretended like we came home from work and there was no more
Mm.
business talk.
And you didn't
Um,
talk business at night.
no, for no reason. It didn't start again until 10 o'clock the next morning. So if you had something you need to talk about, you got to put it on a post-it note and just put a pin in it, because it's not happening. But I think you have to protect your marriage. And if it's business any and all the time, you forget how to be lovers. And you were lovers first before you were business partners. And um, it's hard when business, I mean, if you think about it, all business was family business before 1950. Like, families survived because the business was a family business. So it's very recent that that's not the case. So
Mhm.
we're like, well, how did people do it back then? But the only way we could figure out is to believe the best about each other and not leave the stressful things on the table.
But John was a pastor, or is still a pastor. So a pastor probably have a type A personality. I am the center of attention. Now
Oh,
it
no.
goes to
Oh, not
not
at
John.
all. He's the exact opposite. He was always an associate pastor or a teaching pastor or an education pastor, in administration. So his actual gift sets are in helps. So
Ah.
it was not a big stretch for him to go from helping an organization, a church, move forward to helping me move forward. And he was very unselfish in that. But our whole marriage has been ministry life together. Even when we were dating and engaged, we were doing youth camps and senior adult events together.
Mhm.
And when we got married, his ministry life was on the front burner, and I was behind the scenes doing children's choir and choral music and all that stuff. I was helping in that way. And so we kind of consider it like, is it Torval and Dean, the ice dancers that won the Olympics several Olympics ago?
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. So if you watch them dance or ice dance, one of them will be going forward for a while and then they'll flip, right? And the other one's skating backwards, for a while. And we just consider our ministry life, it's all the same stuff. It doesn't matter who has the microphone at the time. The other one gets to, we believe that the marriage and the ministry is the thing. And
Mm.
what the particular outlet is at that time is of no consequence. That's up to God, what's going on. And so we've always just felt like, okay, whoever's got the, whatever the juice or the mojo is that's going on at that point, the other one jumps in to help that happen. And then sometimes God flips the script, and then the other one's doing the helps. So we've never really known what was going on, to be honest. I don't want to be like those people that are like, yo, we had a master plan. We had it all planned out. It's like our whole marriage, we have just held on to God's, the belt loop of God's pants and flown by the seat of God's pants the whole time. And so we really don't know what's next. I mean, we don't know if COVID is going to change the way churches do things, the way we do things in comedy. We don't know. We've never, so this doesn't feel unfamiliar to us, since if you don't ever know, what's the difference, right? You're just in another time of, okay, Lord, well, next, whatever it is that you have, we're just standing here ready. But yeah, John has never been that person that needed the spotlight at all.
But John,
And
right now, I just, was watching something where you said his immune system is
yes,
is he have me, I have rheumatoid, so I know kind of a little bit
John
what's,
has that also. He
yeah, what
has,
he's.
I would call it a cluster of immune problems. His whole life, they keep revealing themselves. He had it's like, oh, surprise, here's another one. Ulcerative colitis since he was in his 30s. And so that's under control. He's been asymptomatic for 10 years on that one. But then 3.5 years ago, I think we're almost to 4. Um, he was hospitalized for 10 days with sepsis,
Ooh,
where you
staph
get a
infection.
staph infection of your entire bloodstream, and
Ooh.
sometimes it damages all kinds. He lost 30 pounds, a lot of muscle. He lost a lot of tone in his body. He was very weak. And after you have sepsis, you're not supposed to take immunosuppressors, which was keeping his arthritis at bay. So it's like after the sepsis, it just released the kraken, right?
Ouch.
All the stuff. So it's harder to live with. He has his hands have arthritis, his fingers, and so sometimes we'll drive up to a Wendy's, and he'll be giving them money or whatever, and they'll notice that his hands are kind of janky, right?
Hmm.
And they'll say, oh, what happened? And now he says, oh yeah, bull rider injuries. which is
How are you taking that? How are you
which is
taking that when you're?
oh man,
y-
I am, every, I think, yeah, I'm 58, he's 63. So I think you become aware at certain points in your life that every year is going to bring some more indignities. That is part of your body not built to last on this planet. It's going to wear out. Um, you hope that it doesn't wear out way too early. But at the same time, my friend Jan Silvius has a great quote that she says all the time, which is go on with whatever you got left. And that's true of everybody. It doesn't matter what age you are. There's something that you could do last year that you probably can't do this year. I mean, I'm thinking of some 19-year-olds that could do the splits when they were 17 and can't anymore. It's like, well, go on with what you got left. You're good. So we try to remember that whatever we have left is what God wants us to have and to use. And our weaknesses, just like Paul said, maybe some people tie into John as a care pastor because his fingers are janky with arthritis. The very thing that
Mm.
makes him frustrated when he's trying to hold a screwdriver is the same thing that somebody sees in a hospital room or a prayer room or at the side of a funeral casket, that makes them know this is a person who's acquainted with suffering. And we
Mm.
don't know how God uses our weaknesses and our infirmities to make us Velcro, right? because a lot of times in ministry, you can, if you got it all together, air quotes, right? People can't hook into that. They hook into weakness and suffering. And if we don't hide ours, I mean, John can't, his hands are just right out there all the time, but people know that you've suffered too. And it makes them feel, there's the thing, fellowship of suffering is mentioned several times, of his suffering, but our suffering too. And I think people identify more with our weakness than our strengths.
I saw a T-shirt that you were selling at your table once, and it says "Difficulty is inevitable. Drama is a choice."
Yes.
You came up with
You
that.
know what? I did. You know how I know? Because I Googled it. Like one night I was thinking about, a certain situation with a friend of mine and their 14-year-old daughter. Imagine that.
Mm.
And both of them were being dramatic. It's not that one was in the right and the other was in the wrong, but I was like, you know what? Drama is a choice. It really is. You don't have to bring it. I mean, I'm preaching to myself right now,
Wow.
but
No, no, no. Preach. People need to hear that, especially in this pandemic. Please preach it.
yes, the drama seems to be the thing that social media has made available 24/7, and then somebody ratchets it up to 7 and somebody takes it to 9 and then somebody goes, "Oh, I'm going to top that. I'm going to go to 11," right? But all of us are going to face difficulty. And so I wrote it down that night, that difficulty is inevitable, meaning it comes to all of us. But drama is where we get to decide how we're going to respond. And
Mhm.
I was like, oh, that's good. I must have heard that somewhere. Like, I didn't even give myself credit for being able to think up something like that. I immediately went and Googled it. It was nowhere. I'm like, wait a minute.
I came up with
Maybe I thought this
something.
up. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I put it on t-shirts, and man, we sold a lot of those t-shirts because I think a lot of people really it resonated with them that drama is a choice. It's not dictated to us that we have to respond in a dramatic fashion. One of the things I appreciated the most recently, watching little packages on the news and other shows about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Not that
Yeah.
I agree with her politics at all, but her mother taught her that her real power was in not responding emotionally, but
Mm.
to respond with forethought and um, equanimity in her emotions, and not to reveal rancor or fear in her responses and never respond in anger. And I thought, what an example for us, especially of that drama idea, is if we could all just take a deep breath. And for those of us who are believers, of course, we have a higher standard,
Mm.
and to respond in love. Love, let our first thoughts be love. Which also, people, I hear people using Jesus flipping the tables in the temple as their excuse for being, mad. Or I can be
Dramatic.
mad. Jesus flipped the tables. I'm like, well, once you are living a sinless life, you go right ahead with the table flipping. That'll be fine. Anyway, yeah, I probably need to preach that drama T-shirt to myself a little more.
Now, have you written new songs? Do you have a ukulele you can sing or do something? Have
Right
you?
now?
Do you have any? No, I won't put you on the spot. No.
Oh, no, no, no. That you can go to YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I
there's
want to
good
do.
lighting. There's good sound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm not.
That
I
I
will
would I
never.
would send.
I'm a comedian too. I would never ask that. But uh,
Does this happen to you? Like it used to when I would carry boxes of DVDs with me. I don't do that anymore. I just have a QR code that I flash up on the screen because I'm too lazy, because this is America now.
yeah,
Um, I would be at the airline counter, and they'd be like, "What's in the box?" Right? They always ask you what the contents of the box, and I'd say DVDs. Oh, what kind of DVDs? Here we go.
comedy.
Comedy DVDs. Oh, say something
Thing
funny.
funny.
And I would always say, "Well, is is this the place where you would like someone to do surgery on you?" And they'd look at me. I was like, yeah, it's all about environment. I mean, I need a
No,
stage.
no,
I need a lot of people. I need a microphone and some good lights. Like, this is not
no.
the place to say
Oh,
something funny.
let me ask you this, Anita. You before the pandemic, BC, UK, you were on Oprah, Dr. Phil. You were on the Good Morning America for a year. You're doing these big events. You're doing Women's of Faith, and you're doing all that. Was there a time after that where you said, and the reason I'm asking this is because some people right now through the pandemic have to accept a lower job than what they used to.
Oh,
So have you after that you started like, okay, I'm not getting these huge gigs anymore, and do I take these, yeah, little less ones? Do I, people still,
it's
Christians still want me to do the lower, less people, less money gigs?
yeah. That's always that's an evolving concept, isn't it? The what the market will bear,
Mm,
because you want to honor your time and energy. You have to value yourself and what you do, and there are situations where the budget is there for someone less experienced than me. Like there's surgeons that charge, well, I don't know why I go back to surgery every time, but
no.
there's surgeons who'll do a surgery for a certain amount of money, and then there's the top doctor, and the top doctor is going to cost a little more. Having said that, um I always felt like I'll just qualify this as before pandemic also, is if
Yeah.
I took a gig that was less than I felt what my gifts were worth. I'm trying hard to just be um transparent and yet not arrogant. I felt like I was taking money away from someone in their development of their comedy
Oh, that's a good point.
that needed that gig. Like that wasn't my I never sometimes I felt very strongly that's not my gig. Somebody that needs that size platform to learn the skill to do the thing that they need to do. I always felt like once you found a spot where the dollar amount fit the experience amount, that unless the Lord told you otherwise, you should honor that, especially if you had multiple booking agents. You can't be,
Right.
one does this amount and one does this amount. That's not fair either. So that was the standard, I would say, before Corona. But you're right, like it adjusts the market for your skill and where you are. It's constantly fluctuating. It's like the price, what do they call it? Pork futures, pork bellies, pork
Mm.
futures.
I don't know.
When you hear the farm to market report, I live in Texas now, so these things are part of my life. You hear the agriculture report and they'll tell you what pork futures are, meaning like these little pigs that are just babies now, what are they going to get sold for at market, 90 days from now, right? So I feel like with comedy, it's like pork futures, you try to do the best you can with where you are right now, but you also have to say, what will the market bear
Yeah.
for what I bring, you know? And I feel like it's always a difficult dance. And I don't know any comedian on any level that doesn't struggle with the question of what is that today? Not
Yes.
what was I worth 6 years ago, but what am I worth in the market today? And it's difficult, and you have to pray about it and not, you know, Paul says recognize the season, right? Whatever season you need to recognize the season. And I think Paul is just saying get real. Don't think of
Mm,
yourself more highly than you should. Don't take a snapshot of where you were 8 years ago and base what you're doing today on what you were worth then. So I think it's a spiritual issue, but I think it's a
mm.
financial issue. I think it's a time issue. I think it's how much you want to travel versus how much you need to stay home to take care of your aging body. These are all considerations. And man, that is a one thing where you just got to work it out with fear and trembling. Like Paul says, everybody work out your own salvation. Everybody work out your own price structure for comedy. But you're right, now after COVID, maybe there are bar mitzvahs that I need to attend and bring comedy. I
No,
don't
you
know.
don't. No,
I
you
don't know.
don't. No, no, no. You don't want to do bar mitzvahs. But that, that's always the challenge. Not just for us entertainers. There's people who are, taking jobs We're like, okay, I was an audio technician or a great. I have a friend who's the one on my nightly show, and he's like, I'm taking a job with Amazon for less, and I'm going. This is the same feeling for an entertainer who's like, well,
Sure.
I used to get 5 to 10 or
Yeah.
more, and now, am I gonna take 1,000 because of COVID or 2,500 because of COVID? And these are the things that same
It
struggles.
depends. It depends on if you like living indoors, right? If you enjoy living indoors and you need to pay your mortgage,
Uh huh.
you know, those things dictate to us also. It's not just what am I worth? It's like, what do I need? You know, and so, once again, everybody's trying to work out their gig,
Now you're a mom, and it's through COVID, and for a while, did your kids stay with you during the COVID? Your adult kids, or no?
Not yet. They're all gainfully employed. They were smarter than me. They had jobs that continued uh, through COVID, so they had guaranteed income. And I have not had the pleasure because I have grandkids now, and I would literally take all the grandkids in and maybe just let the adult children sleep on the porch.
From your experience, you're a great mom. You raised the kids, then you started your career, and you're known for the mom song. So, what advice do you have for mothers right now who are dealing
Oh, you
with
mean
kids
like
living with?
the surprise homeschoolers?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Surprise, you're a teacher. Yeah, I just think it's kind of hilarious. I homeschooled part of all of my children's lives. The two
Mhm.
boys I did the early part, and my daughter I did the later part. But I'm kind of based it on what our kids needed. But they had all kinds of education experiences. But I think it's funny that people that said no way could I ever homeschool, and then now everybody homeschooling, off and on, and we don't know if the schools are going to close again or reopen or whatever. I think COVID has definitely opened up a whole new vein of questions of things that we thought only could happen a certain way. And for years, American education system is it can only be this one way. It has to be this many days in this room. And that's the
Mm.
only way it gets done. And now I see every part of the education system up and down just apple cart turnover, man. It's just everybody's flailing in the wind about it. So for the moms, to answer your question, I'd just like to say that whatever it is, it's not a surprise to God. It's a surprise to us, but God's not sitting on his throne just biting his fingernails about this whole situation. And he gave you those kids, and you are the mom for those kids. It doesn't matter if you feel adequate or equipped. Um, I think I love that the stories in the Bible are there to show us people in crisis situations. I wonder if when Moses's mom set him in that little basket with, it said pitch. It's basically chewing gum,
Yeah.
wrapped
Oh,
around it, and
yeah.
sent him down the river, literally, not figuratively. If she thought to herself, I'm a horrible mother. I know this is the best thing for my child to live, but yeah, it was a life and death situation. And I think moms are forever second guessing themselves whether or not the thing that they're doing could possibly be the right thing. And once she sent that child into the bulrushes, into that little creek slash river,
Mhm.
1,000 times she second guessed herself. And when Jesus was hanging on the cross and his mother Mary was at the bottom, you know, what was she thinking? Like, did I mishear? Did I mishear
Mhm.
that from the angel that this was going to be the savior of the world? This can't possibly be the way. Somehow I failed him. Um, every mother second guesses her adequacy and how this situation will ever get resolved in a positive way. But I know this, that God doesn't make mistakes in the children that he gives to us, that we're the mom they need, regardless of how we feel about it. And just do the best you can with the information you have at the time. You know, None of us have a clue how this is how long it's gonna last, how it's
Yeah.
gonna affect us personally, whether we're gonna get it or survive it or end up in the hospital. I mean, all of us are what I think is, now you tell me if you think this is interesting. The two terms that people use to talk about this are unprecedented and uncertain.
Uh,
Unprecedented and uncertain. And the truth is, every moment of our life has been both. Every moment since we drew our
yeah.
first breath, we've never lived that moment before. And the degree of certainty that we felt about things was just a myth, it was an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So the truth is, we've always been living in unprecedented and uncertain times. We just didn't really see it. So
Another.
yeah, I just want to encourage the moms. You're asking me about them
Yes.
specifically, to say you are the mom your kid needs right now, whether
And it's
you
adequate.
whether you feel it or not. It's ordained for you to be that kid's mom, and you just do the best you can with what you know right now, and the Lord
What?
will guide you.
Amen. What do you say to a wife? And I know I'm gonna lead this final questions towards your marriage event that you're doing this coming Friday, the date night. What do you say to a wife that's feeling guilty because she makes a lot more money than her husband?
Oh gosh, I wish I had that feeling anymore. I wish I could feel that. Um, you
You
know
felt
what?
it for a while, did you?
No, not really. And I'll tell you why. Because we were poor a lot longer than we had money. So all money was ours. It didn't matter who
Mm.
was making it.
Oh, okay.
It's all our money. And even when John wasn't on the road with me, I felt that way. I bring it home and put it in the pot, and it's ours. And so we actually have a devotional book called Songs in the Key of Solomon that I just found out today is coming out in paperback. It's not new. It's been out a little while, but it's 52 devotions for couples. And oh, actually, this part that I'm going to talk about was in the sequel to it, called Duets. And
Uh-huh.
John and I thought we would write a devotional for couples about couples in the Bible, but we didn't know that there weren't that many great couples in the Bible. So it became a little bit of reverse encouragement, because no matter how jacked up your marriage was, you're not as jacked up as these people in the Bible. But one of them was about Deborah, who was a judge, right,
Yes.
in the Old Testament. And we don't even know her husband's name. That's how unfamous her husband was. But we know Deborah's name because she was bad to the bone, right?
Yeah.
She
Was she
led
married?
armies.
I didn't know she was
She
married.
was married, but we
She
don't
was.
know her husband's name. He's mentioned as her husband, but that's it. So the devotion that we did was, what do you do when one person in the marriage has notoriety and the other person is in the shadows,
Mm.
nameless or whatever? And how do you deal with that sort of thing? So um, it's been interesting in the Torval and Dean ice dancing way that both of us have been in the forefront, and both of us have been the support off and on.
Right.
So it's always us. It's always us. It's not me and it's not you. It's us. And when the us is bigger than the two parts, then really you can celebrate and help and continue and encourage the other, knowing that it's a season. I mean, nothing is sure and nothing lasts forever. And I think if the concept of us is bigger than the concept of me and you and whatever's going on with me and you, it's not as you said, the question is guilty because you make more money. It should be, thank God somebody's making money. You know,
Right.
it doesn't matter who it is at the moment. It's just a celebration that we are being provided for, that God is faithful in the way that he blesses, and he's blessing us. He's not just
Mm.
blessing me. He's making a way for our family to be provided for. And for that, we're grateful no matter how it comes
Now,
through.
next Friday you have a date night.
It's this Friday. It's this
It's
Friday.
this
Like
coming Friday. It is
three
coming the
three
9th of
3 days. Yeah.
October,
October 9th. Yes. We're doing a,
2020.
a live date night online. There's a ministry out of Arizona, and they do date nights across the country. And a friend of the show does many of them, is Leland Clausen,
Oh
and
yeah.
he's on their live marriage date nights. Well, I'm on Aspire Women, which is in the same ministry as these marriage date nights. So they wanted me to cross over to the marriage date night, except just for online. I think because I'm too expensive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my husband John and I are going to be discussing things just like this
Mhm.
on Friday night. But we're going to try to make it fun and funny, because we never know what we're going to say until it comes out of our mouth, and then we sometimes crack our own selves up. So that's going to be 7 o'clock Central on
Okay.
Facebook, and if you go to my page, there's a link to
Anita
that as well.
Renfro,
Yeah,
Anitarenfro, and that's on your
E
face E
Anita
and on
Renfro. Yeah, go to
Facebook.
the Facebook page and there's a link there, and it'll be live Friday night. But then I think it's available for another week. That you can still view it after, if you already have plans for Friday night.
Mhm.
But we love to talk about marriage and the things that we've learned. Good grief, we've messed it up every way you can mess it up, but we laugh about most of it, which I think is different because most people cry about it. But uh, we we choose to laugh. We've always been, right after we're mad, we just crack up and fall on the floor. So the great thing is now, I think when I was younger, I worried if I was being heard, like, oh, do you really hear me? And now that he's old and has fuzzy inner ears, I'm pretty sure he's never hearing me exactly right. So the things that we mishear are way funnier than whatever we actually tried to say. So we're going to be together Friday night doing a date night. It's only be like 30 minutes, so it's not that
Oh, that's
long. So it's not a long commitment. You don't have to hang around for 2 hours, just for 30 minutes. So we'll be sharing all the ways we did it wrong. It'll be great.
oh, that's wonderful. Anita, thank you so much for you are
Oh
so
my
funny and
goodness, yes.
people go to
Thank you.
YouTube and just put Anita Renfro and kick back and watch everything,
All
every
kind of
song, every
foolishness will
stand
come
up.
up, and
It,
different hairdos. Oh,
yeah,
so
of
many
course.
different hairdos. I
But
remember when I first met you. Naz, how many years are we talking? Like 18?
18, 19 years, yeah.
Yeah, we both had a lot. You had more hair,
Yes.
and I think mine was shorter. I had less hair. So
Yeah,
look
you
at
had
us.
shorter red hair and shorter. And you were
Look
talking
at us swapping.
about how women sweat in their bras, and I went home. I
Oh,
said, honey, I know the audience appreciated that as a Christian audience and conservative, but is that an issue for women? She goes, yeah. I go, okay, well, I learned something from Anita Renfro today.
yes, that was when I had the ShamWow. Yeah, that absorbs 5 times its weight in water. And I would pull it out. I would have it already positioned where it was halfway sticking out, and I just pull it out and throw it. And yes, it killed at Women of Faith, but I think guys didn't get it at all.
I did. Thank you so much. Please go to anitarenfro.com or her Facebook page and fan page and be able to watch this Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Central time, 8 p.m. Eastern time
Oh,
on
you're so
Facebook.
good at that. I don't do the time zones well.
Well,
You
I
did
do
it.
a show every night, weeknight called Live with Naz, and we're like show number 147 tonight. And what we do is we spend an hour trying, not being funny myself because after the third show I ran out of material. But the audience is being fun. They come up with funny stuff, and it's fun for an hour
That's
every week.
awesome.
Every weeknight at
Well,
8:30 p.m. Pacific.
the good thing is life keeps happening to us, so technically we'll never run out of material. You just
Well,
observe and report.
I can't wait to go and do a concert with you live where we work
That would
together
be
again. That would
awesome.
be awesome. We love
That
you.
would be
Send my
awesome.
love to John and your
I'll
family.
do
Thank you
it.
so much.
I'll do it. And to your family also. And everybody just stay encouraged. I know it's tough times everywhere, but the more you laugh, the better you'll feel.
You awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for creating the mom song that forever it will last as a great song. Go watch it.
Thank
Go
you.
watch it on YouTube. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Naz.
Bye. Bye.